Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, multi-billion-dollar secret that is literally hiding right there in your wallet. I'm talking about credit card economics. It's this gigantic global system operating in plain sight every single day. And I promise you, once you see how the underlying machinery actually works, you are going to look at that simple piece of plastic entirely differently. Let's anchor this in everyday reality for a second. Picture this. You're buying a simple $5 cup of coffee. You tap your card, and, well, it just feels like your money moves straight from your account to the cafe, right? It's a totally ordinary transaction, the kind that happens millions of times a day all over the world. Just $5. But there is a massive, complex economic universe packed into that tiny amount. I mean, from your perspective as a consumer, it literally takes a second to tap. You hear that quick little beep, see the green check mark, and you're happily walking out the door with your caffeine fix. And honestly, the speed and that perceived simplicity, that's exactly what makes the whole system so incredibly successful. It feels completely effortless. But beneath that 1-second tap, there's an astonishingly fast conversation happening between multiple massive financial institutions. Which brings us to the absolute billion-dollar question we're answering today. How on earth do banks and payment companies make billions from something so ordinary? If you're really just moving your own money around to buy a coffee, where is all this profit actually coming from? How does a split-second, seemingly free transaction generate such jaw-dropping wealth for these companies? Well, let's break down exactly what happens behind the scenes.
So let's dive right into Part 1, the invisible payment network.
That split-second tap doesn't just do one thing. It triggers a whole multi-step chain reaction. First, the swiper tap happens. Then, that data instantly travels to the payment network, which routes it directly to the bank that issued your card to verify, that you actually have the funds or the credit. Finally, that approval bounces all the way back to the merchant. In the literal blink of an eye, this chain reaction earns money for several different businesses along the way. They're all taking a tiny slice of the pie before the transaction is even finalized.
And that little slice? That's called the processing fee. When you use your credit card to buy that $5 coffee, the coffee shop doesn't actually get the full $5. A small processing fee is deducted before those funds ever reach the business's bank account. And this fee isn't just pocketed by one company. It's carefully split up among the different participants in that payment system we just talked about. The exact split? Well, that depends entirely on the network and the specific agreements they have in place.
All right, moving on to Part 2, how banks make money.
So the bank that actually issued your credit card, the one whose name is stamped on the front of the plastic, they earn their revenue from a few different sources. A really major one is interest. This kicks in if you carry a balance instead of paying off your full statement amount by the due date. But on top of that, many cards have annual fees just for the privilege of, having the card in your wallet, plus other charges like late fees. Though, to be fair, those can vary wildly depending on the specific card and the issuer. Still, it's a very multi-layered, highly lucrative setup for them. Now here's a super common misconception we definitely need to clear up. We have to distinguish between the payment networks, like Visa and MasterCard, and the issuing banks, because they operate entirely differently. Visa and MasterCard generally do not lend money directly to cardholders at all. If you carry a balance, you don't owe Visa, you owe your bank. Instead, these networks act as the crucial infrastructure. They provide the digital highway that connects the banks to the merchants, and they earn their fees simply for facilitating those transactions. Basically, they're the toll operators on the payment highway.
Which naturally leads us to Part 3, why merchants accept fees.
Seeing all these fees getting taken out of the transaction, you kind of have to ask, why would any business willingly give up a cut of their hard-earned sales? The reality is, accepting credit cards is just a really smart, necessary trade-off for merchants these days. Credit cards make payments incredibly fast, super convenient, and highly secure for both the buyer and the seller. Plus, by accepting cards, businesses can serve a way bigger base of customers who simply prefer paying electronically. If a busy cafe only accepted cash, they'd lose a massive amount of business. So paying that small processing fee is really just viewed as the cost of doing business. It increases their overall volume and keeps that checkout line moving fast.
Okay, let's get into the fun stuff in Part 4, the truth about rewards. We all love the perks, right? Cashback, airline miles, luxury hotel points. These reward programs are an absolutely fascinating piece of the puzzle.
They might seem like entirely free money to us as consumers, but they are systematically funded by the overall economics of the card program. That free flight to Hawaii, it's paid for by a combination of the transaction fees charged to the merchants every single time you swipe, and, this is key, by the interest payments collected from other users in the system. The money has to come from somewhere, and it's built right into the mathematical model of the whole card ecosystem.
This essentially splits credit card users into two distinct camps based on how they use the system. On one side, you've got people who pay their full balance every single month. They avoid interest entirely, use the card as a super convenient payment tool, and reap all those rewards that are basically funded by the merchant fees. On the other side, you have users who carry a balance month to month. They're the ones who end up paying the interest to the bank, which, in turn, helps fund the wider system for everyone else. So what you should ultimately take away from this is that the credit card itself is totally neutral. Used responsibly, like as a pure payment mechanism where you clear the balance, credit cards can be fantastic financial tools offering great security and perks. But used carelessly, carrying high-interest debt over time can quickly become incredibly expensive. It really all comes down to how you, the individual user, interact with the terms of your specific card.
Let's wrap things up with Part 5, Billions of Everyday Swipes.
To really wrap your head around the magnitude of this, we have to zoom way out from that micro $5 coffee transaction. There's this quote from our source material that just perfectly nails the economic reality we've been looking at. Each swipe is small, but together they create one of the largest payment businesses on the planet. A few cents taken from a coffee purchase here, a fraction of a percent from a grocery run there, on an individual level, it seems totally insignificant. But the credit card industry generates billions of dollars every single year, precisely because millions upon millions of these transactions are happening every single day all across the globe. The sheer compounding volume of these tiny little fees is absolutely staggering.
And that brings us to the end of today's Explainer. I want to leave you with one final, provocative question to think about the next time you pull out your wallet. Who is really paying for your next free reward? The hidden economics of every tap, swipe, and click are happening all around us, totally invisible, but profoundly impactful. Thank you so much for hanging out with me to uncover the hidden brilliance behind this everyday tool. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next Explainer.